I love filler. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
best part of the pie.
Right? You end up getting like not only the whipped cream, but you get like
All that good stuff.
all that good stuff
Yep.
in there. Hello, everybody.
Welcome, welcome. Yeah, we're going to be talking about filler today. For
Mhm.
podcast number 125.
Indeed, indeed.
Mhm.
All right, all right. Hey, Akbach, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub
Yes.
for 14 months in a row. Caleb is gone, Crab? Wait, why would you be crab dancing with Caleb gone? And what do you mean Caleb is gone? I'm right here.
Yeah. No, it's they found out that the entity known as Caleb is merely one half of the alien overmind. Yeah. Mhm. Yep.
Wait, what Wednesday stream?
Wednesday stream.
Someone's messing with the settings, potentially.
Hmm.
I don't know about
We
this
will
secret,
investigate
this
this.
secret Wednesday stream. If anything, no. What happened was last week we did not have the podcast
Right, because
because I had dental issues or what have
Yeah.
you.
horrible, crippling pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Ameju, thank you though so much for the tier 1 sub for 8 months on a 7-month streak.
Yes.
Your page has changed. Oh,
Hmm.
okay. I guess I'll have to look into that.
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
I don't know what that's all about.
But before we get too much into this,
Mm-hmm.
VIP shout out for today.
DBE 1000.
DBE 1000.
DBE 1000.
Thank you so much for all the support.
Yeah.
You're awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
It means a lot, and it's awesome having you in not only on VIP calls and such, but also in the streams as a
Yes.
moderator. So thank you so much, bro.
Thank you for the help.
Whenever you end
It's
up
huge.
watching this.
Mhm.
Yeah. So weird. No Monday, but Tuesday to Friday. Huh.
That
That's,
is bizarre.
That is kind of interesting.
That is very bizarre. But yeah, we're going to be defending filler. Now, filler
Yes.
in quotation marks, granted, because there's definitely bad filler out there. But there's a reason that filler exists.
And we're going to be getting into that.
Exactly. And it can do some pretty awesome things for the story.
Right. Now, one of the things that you're obviously going to be thinking about, like right off the bat, is we're not talking, when we say filler, that's why we have quotations, filler
Mhm.
there. There are a lot of story fillers specifically with regards to anime that just means non-canon, non-manga original material.
Yeah.
But that happens all the time when you have an anime adaptation.
Right.
You've got to change things. Things go out of order and what have
Yeah.
you. So we're not actually talking about the non-canon stuff.
Mhm.
We're talking about the things that are 100% canon, but people still call it fillery or what
Mhm.
have you because
Right.
of reasons.
And the thing is that, like, when you think about filler, it's actually kind of, the line's kind of blurry because
Mhm.
there's a lot of things on a very small scale that are, follow some of the tenets of filler, and yet there are some things on a large scale that then people are like, no, that's filler, it's bad. But
Right.
yeah, it's part of the glue.
Short answer, you want to just leave the stream right now, is filler can be good, not all filler bad.
Exactly.
That's the stream.
Yeah.
And
Surprise, it's complicated.
Surprise, it's very
Mhm.
complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go eat Italian food. That's a great example.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So,
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of different types of filler. I would say almost like character archetypes, but for filler.
Sure.
So you've got like the Chadano filler, where it's basically like
Oh, and you haven't even read
I
Comey.
don't even know what I'm
Yeah. Uh-huh.
talking about exactly, but you have to introduce a character or a set of characters. So you tell this self-contained mini conflict kind of story narrative that
Yep.
sells people on the idea that, this is a character or a
Right.
set of characters, and we're going to be focusing on them. But before we do the slow, boring introduction stuff, let's show them doing a heist, robbing a train.
That's right.
Going on some intense,
Yep.
thing that showcases what they're all about.
Mhm.
And then we end up going into the main story or what
Yeah.
have you.
Oh, people disregard the date group in EPO? Oh, that's
Date.
too bad. Wait.
Oh, the
No.
date group.
Yeah. Yeah, when the three girls and everything, and
Oh,
But see-
wow.
the thing is,
Yeah.
those are some of, like,
Mhm.
so okay.
So
Filler.
let's
Yeah.
let's keep going.
Alright,
That's an
right.
example of one of the ones that we have here, which is the levity / relaxation relaxation filler. I can speak.
Yeah.
It's the revity and the
Revity.
Erection.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Levity and relaxation filler. So that's
Yeah.
basically like your beach episodes.
Exactly.
Your,
Your-
little spin-off stuff.
The Three Stooges and Epo try and pick up girls,
Mhm.
like all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, for all those people that only watch battle shonen anime, Cycronia does basically mean that MHA.
Right.
So the next one here that we're going to bring up just because it
Mhm.
is a specific archetype, even
It
though we're
is a
not really
thing.
going to talk about it as much as just disconnected filler.
Right, where it completely, Ichigo's about to fight Ulquiorra, and then all of a sudden we're somewhere completely different, even though we've been building up to this for, I can't even remember how many episodes. Then all of a sudden we're somewhere else, and that's supposed to be okay.
Right.
That is sort of that, the black sheep of the family, the child that nobody wants to acknowledge, it happens. It happens, and it's unfortunate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then the final one is...
Yes, the non-traditional conflict filler. Yeah, that's one that I came up with to try and sound smart. But basically, it's the thing where, like, all of a sudden, okay, Code Geass is happening, and there's thrills, and
Yep.
it's awesome, and Lelouch is zero, and things are happening, and then
The
a
cat takes the helmet!
the cat takes the helmet,
Oh,
parading
no!
out throughout the school. Oh shit, we need to go catch it, right? Am I going to be thwarted by a feline?
And now all the clubs are being told that if they get whatever Lelouch is wanting, or they get this
if
cat,
they chase the cat, then they
get funding,
what was it, funding, or was it like a first kiss or something like
or
that?
something like that.
I don't know. Yeah. But the self-contained episodes, and this is one of the ones where it's a lot more blurred, actually, because then the definition for whether it's filler with quotes or filler without quotes is basically just whether the original creator put it in the story. And yet a lot of the times they're completely indistinguishable. In fact, there's an entire genre of television where it's nothing but that, right? That's the episodic stories, that's the slice of lives, that's the all of that stuff, right? Yeah.
It follows a lot of the rules of what you would call filler in other anime or what have you, just because it ends up doing a little bit of a genre switch or slows down the pacing or what have you. But the main thing I think you'll find is kind of a tendency in all this filler, regardless of whether or not you like this filler or you don't like this filler, is they can do these three fun things with it. This is like something they can do with all of them there. You can change up the pacing of your story dramatically. And when I say that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing or a good thing. It's just is a thing that you have the ability to do.
That's usually where the filler ends up being bad and where it ends up being good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, there's people that are talking to us constantly because we've reached a certain point in the One Piece manga that we have to go check out this anime original filler arc that's apparently amazing, so good that it's known as the gold standard for anime filler arcs. So it's like that kind of stuff as well. The other thing that this is the obvious one that everyone expects you would at least hopefully get in good filler,
whether it's filler or not.
Well, yeah, but specifically the reason why I think most people would assume you're getting filler specifically is because we need to take time to develop the characters. And usually what ends up happening is you don't develop the main character or characters.
Sure.
You develop some characters in addition to them that are, not necessarily worthy of getting that much focus in the main story. Let's just be honest. They're not necessarily going to get that level of focus because that takes time.
Yep. And it's something where I feel like this Bleach is such a great example of this. The biggest problem that I had with the Bleach filler arcs when I was watching Bleach wasn't the fact that the arc itself was super boring or whatever, but it was the idea that since I knew that it was filler, I knew that nothing that happened over the next 20 episodes was going to matter, right? Even if there was some crazy development for the characters, which Bleach never did except for one time, and I loved it. Or with the teasing of will we do this plot reveal? And you know that they can't because this isn't canon, so of course they're not going to, but they still spend the time on it as if they're going to. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, and then the next part is kind of, I would say, where the most vague stuff lies, and that is that when you're in a story that has both a overarching narrative
Mhm.
and then individual narratives, of course, for the characters themselves, you can kind of explore that story within the context of, okay, because character A happens to be in this location, what part of that location is going to get kind of built upon? Because you have all the Fire Nation kids all together finally,
yeah,
and they don't have an overarching goal right now.
Right.
What kind of
'Cause the
Fire
Avatar's
Nation
dead.
exploration do you want to
Mhm.
do, or what kind of development do you want to focus on
Right.
them there? And then you can switch up entirely the type of conflict, like we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
non-traditional conflict. What type of actual conflict the story is going to be about?
Yeah, it's not
Is
fight the
Azula like wanting a love conquest?
Right,
Or
right,
to
exactly.
destroy people
Yeah.
at volleyball, you
right
know?
and the thing is that while something like that, and I feel like one of the biggest things with filler, whether it's canon filler or uncanon filler,
Mhm.
is that you need to make sure you don't overstay your welcome, right?
Yep.
Because your audience got into the story for a particular reason, for
Right.
a particular set of characters, and that should be absolutely respected.
Mhm.
And yet, if it's always the same thing, then that's kind of boring, right?
Mhm.
You know, a story with no filler is those dime action movies that you can't remember anything that happened, but there were some explosions, I guess, and shooting, right?
Right.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and then it's over and you leave it and you never think about it again.
For sure.
You know, but so in something like Avatar, yeah, you have this beach episode, but it's just the one episode, right?
Right.
If they went into some 6-episode mini-series within the series for beach stuff, I mean, hey, I would love it because I am such a big fan of the show,
Right.
but
Same.
it'd get old. It would,
It would get old really quickly.
really dang quickly.
So, just because these are the fun things that you can do with filler doesn't mean they can't be used badly. So,
Mhm.
all this can be taken within the context of it that it's about execution. But these are the
Yeah.
reasons why filler happens on the writing side of things.
Yes.
Not necessarily the production side of things. That's why we're not even going to be talking about the fact that the main reason why an anime filler happens is actually because of constraints by the studio to,
Yeah, that's
make
very-
the anime.
That's a very specific problem that we as anime fans have because of the whole manga and anime and all that
All
stuff.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So the main thing is when you're executing on these things, keep, I would say, the full package in mind. Just
Mhm.
because you're going to develop the characters doesn't mean you can completely butcher and sacrifice your pacing. Just
Yeah.
because you're
Uh-huh.
switching up the pacing and you're telling a really fast narrative or what have you because of this unique filler kind of
Mhm.
bit that you're telling, it doesn't mean you can just put all your character development on hold.
Right.
Try to basically get all three kind of in that package
Like,
there.
ideally, filler should be a little microcosm of a story, like the same beats that you would do to make a story in general.
Right.
But the thing is that with filler, it's like having one-shots in D&D.
Right.
It can be amazing. If it was just one-shots, you might get tired of them. You might want a long-running campaign.
Uh-huh.
But you have an amazing freedom that you have with filler because, especially in a story that has a very involved narrative and plot
Right.
and everything like that,
Uh-huh.
there's only so many things you can do, right? In Attack on Titan, I love Attack on Titan, but
Mhm.
one of the weaker parts of Attack on Titan is the characters because the plot's so intensive.
Right.
They can't spend time on them very often, right?
Yep.
And the almost the filler bits are the little bits of quiet moments with the characters, right? And we've
Right.
talked about those at length. But if they were to do a filler episode, then suddenly, hey, they could take it someplace else. They could have something where it's, not crazy overdramatic conflicts. It's something a lot simpler.
Right. And when that filler basically comes about, you end up getting some of the better experiences in
Right.
anime.
Or at least you can. The opportunity is there.
Right.
And usually I feel like the reasons that filler is bad is because of like production issues and it being something that's very rushed because, say, of the timetable aspect
Right.
of things, or just because, let's face it, we as fans can get salty when the things that like we're going to a story for aren't being done.
So
right?
then you get an Endless 8 situation like with Haruhi
Well-
on the release schedule.
Well, sure.
No, yeah,
that's
that's a thing. Endless 8 is probably way more
Oh,
respected
boy.
nowadays than it was when it was being released, where it was actual hell because people were like, I don't want to
Mhm.
watch the same dang episode a fourth time. What, you're telling me it's a fifth time now? A
Yeah.
sixth time? Okay, I've seen a
Does
couple
this
changes
ever end?
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, does this ever end?
Right. And I will not be one of those people that will say that Endless 8 was a good idea.
No. Me neither.
I will say that there is stuff that you can get out of Endless Eight that you certainly don't get out of any other stories I've seen. But is it good? That's
Right.
a complicated question.
Right. So examples of, I would say, relevant filler stuff with regards to this context, filler, quote unquote, that's happening right now is a very easy one that is currently a big point of discussion for
And
the anime
apparently
community.
contention.
And apparently a lot of contention is contentious like aspects as well.
Mhm.
That is the MHA festival arc that we're going through right now. I personally love the arc.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
y'all know how we feel about it. Like,
Yeah,
it's,
exactly.
Like, it is my favorite arc in the series, with the exception of, well, all the really good serious arcs. Like it's one of those things where I absolutely love it
mhm,
on a completely different level than how I love the rest of the show, right?
right.
And yet I'm so glad that we have it, because
Mhm.
one of the things that, like, I feel like Kill la Kill kind of did this with the OVA episode at the end, and I feel like sometimes
Mhm.
MHA does this. Like, I feel like the Fortnite arc was kind of an example of that, where when there's enough of a pattern established,
Right.
you feel like you want to stick to the pattern because that's what your audience will be expecting, right? That's
Sure.
what they're here for. But sometimes you do it when being creative would be better, right? When breaking the mold a little bit would be a bit more helpful. And I feel like that's what this arc is, where it's something where there's no particular concrete challenge that they need to overcome with their quirks, right? There's no antagonistic force, whether it be the teachers giving the exams or the League of Villains or anything like that. I mean, there's, Gentle Criminal and La Brava, but they haven't fully met the main characters yet, even though we know they're going to cause shenanigans,
Right.
And because of that, there's all kinds of things that they can do in the series, or in with the characters in the show, in this little corner of the show, where they can focus on, more intimate little moments, or just fun moments.
Mhm.
Let's have Bakugo play the drums and be talking about all that stuff. Let's have the amazing part where we see Jiro sing for the first time.
Right.
Why not?
When you have an ensemble cast, for instance, in MHA, you are going to underdevelop a lot of your characters. Because you're going to underdevelop a lot of your characters, you need to give time, at the very least, to remind people that they are characters. In order to do that, you have to give them screen time.
Mhm.
Sometimes their screen time isn't something that fits within the current overarching narrative. That's why I made the distinction earlier between the overarching narrative of the plot versus the individual characters and their narratives. While, for the most part, a good show will blend in the character narratives with the overarching plot, sometimes the conflict is something that the characters happen upon or stumble into, rather than actually being directly having any causal relationship with. So you end up with these instances there where you have little side stories going on in the background that are maybe being shown or told in little aspects of something there going on in the background. In as much as Aoyama is kind of staring at you at every point in MHA, he is a character, but you don't necessarily know what kind of character he is much at all, other than a few kind of adjectives to describe his personality. When you start to get those little aspects of his character in the story, a lot of them aren't actually plot relevant. A lot of them are maybe thematically relevant, or maybe relevant to some of Deku's development or some kind of stuff like that. But in order to actually give that time focus, you need to maybe have a filler bit of the story.
And even if it's not filler in the sense that it is in the original material, it's the idea that that's where the soul of the story actually lies, right? It's in those moments with the characters where we can see them being real people.
Mhm.
The conflicts are wonderful, and you really can't have a story without the conflicts, right? But I feel like that's something that most everybody kind of gets, right?
Yeah.
Like, except for the, then the slice of life people who will be like, well, hold on now. But the whole idea that everything needs to be tied to some serious conflict, that doesn't need to happen.
Yep.
One of the things that can actually be kind of exhausting for me, I'm going to use D&D as an analogy, but if it's something where the DM is constantly giving the party like ultra high stakes things that they have to deal with, that can get rough. Right? It's like, no. Let us just goof off and go, muck around at the merchant's place or whatever. Let us do that kind of stuff. because then it makes the world feel a bit more lived in. Like, you know,
Yep.
whether, you know, pacing, characters, world building, whatever, like you can do all the same basic stuff that you would in a regular story, but, you know, just in this tiny little corner. And if it's disconnected, that can in a lot of ways give you more freedom, because then the audience knows that we are going to leave this and put this down at some point, and then it's going to go back to the way things were, right? It's only going to be different in this little area over here.
Mhm. Yeah, the
But,
fun thing
yeah.
with D&D specifically is that while it doesn't really follow any of the rules of television or anime at all, it has actually a very good understanding of what makes good filler, usually. And
Sure.
it's usually the characters influencing the story in a dramatic way that is in line with their motivations. Someone in the chat just brought this up, but Hunter x Hunter is a great example of this.
Oh,
where
sure.
you have characters who are going on a journey to get Greed Island.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, to get the Greed Island game, there's a lot of things that you kind of have to navigate through along that way. And all of a sudden, suddenly Gon and Killua are side characters in
Yep.
Kurapika's main story arc.
Right.
For Gon and Killua, from their perspective, you could say this is their filler.
Sure.
This
Yeah.
doesn't really actually have as much to do with their main plot with to get Greed Island. If anything, it's a distraction that takes away from that. But because we're in an anime, you know, screw the rules as to who the main character is. We can just do whatever we want here, and we end up getting probably one of the best story beats in Hunter x Hunter, because we shifted the you know, the whole genre of the story
Right.
all of a sudden here to being a kind of a
Mhm.
crime thriller
Yep.
versus being an adventure to go find a
Right.
video game. Now, definitely, you know, New York New Arc is not filler
Right.
But-
by a long shot.
by a long shot, but it is a switch, an example to focus on a character that
Mhm.
wasn't as developed
Right.
as the main characters were at
Yeah.
that given point in
And-
time.
And the change into thriller, that is something that if it went beyond the York New Arc, right, where if it just seemed like the genre changed to that from then on,
Mhm.
that probably would be unwelcome,
Right.
right? But the fact that it's like, no, we just have it for this point, and then it's going to be done, and then we'll go back into the original way of doing things, and maybe
Right.
then explore into different areas, like
For sure.
you know that oh, and on the D&D thing, I don't know if any of you are DMs in here, but one of the worst things that I've ever seen happen in D&D games, and I'm sure many of you who play D&D can attest to this, is when the canon story becomes the most important thing.
Mhm.
That can be absolutely awful, because then yeah, okay, there's a story here, but when you really think about it, the conflict is kind of arbitrary.
Mhm.
Like whether you're talking about a drama or you know a thriller or whatever, it's about how it ties to those characters, and a lot of the times the best way to show it tying to the characters is in those quiet moments where
Mhm.
nothing needs to be happening.
Right. Now, with regards to entertainment, the reason why most people don't watch D&D streams in general is because most of them are pretty bad, is that, you know, that those kinds of moments where you have little quiet non-main plot stuff there can be really boring. They can feel
Mhm.
very dreary, and there's not
Yeah.
actually anything exciting happening.
If you're
So-
not invested in the characters, then it will
Right.
be awful, right?
That is why, in my opinion, one of the best examples of filler is usually what happens way after the story has been going on for a while,
Mhm.
and you've had a lot of big conflict things happen.
Yeah.
So an example recently with MHA, for instance, here is we're coming up on around 100 episodes into this show,
Which is
or
crazy.
we are already 100 episodes into the show. But essentially, we had a big conflict happen. We had a lot of stuff get resolved
Mhm.
here. At the end of that, we need to have that little moment of relaxing, calming
Yep.
to build up the
Mhm.
tension again. But instead of immediately going to build up the tension again, they decided, wait, there's actually a character from the previous arc
Mhm.
that literally needs to have a
Yep.
moment of peace
Mhm.
and wholesomeness brought into their life.
Yep.
Why? Because just shit happens and it's crazy.
Uh-huh.
So the story literally is like, we need a filler arc.
Right.
And it gives us one
Yep.
because of that.
And by the way, one of the reasons why I would also say, you know, again, this arc of MHA is super important. You don't necessarily need these after every intense arc. You don't. And if you do need them, maybe you can have it be something that's a lot smaller, right?
Right.
Half an episode or an episode or even just a conversation, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes that's enough. But for this arc in particular, this last arc with Overhaul and everything, that was probably the most intense from like just heavy, like it being like some
also moment by moment,
right, and moment by moment.
Mhm.
One of the most crazy arcs in that regard that we've had in MHA up to this point.
Mhm.
So having something like this after that, like even Area aside, right? The fact that
Yeah.
Area is here to tie it in and give it that good lead in so that it really does feel necessary from a narrative standpoint, not just on a meta standpoint,
Right.
is wonderful. But even just from a meta standpoint, thank you. Like this is very well placed.
Right. And as the characters have a relevant motivation aspect to go into this arc with intention, you feel in this arc specifically that the characters need to be doing this. It is not something where the plot is reacting and forcing the characters into a decision like a bad DM would, railroading them
Right.
into a main plot thing. This is the players basically going, oh, wait. We actually do kind of just want this.
Mhm.
And then there's something where the DM kind of goes, oh, okay, I have a villain that I've saved up for a little bit. So they're a flair kind of fun character.
Right.
I'll bring them in slowly and provide
Uh-huh.
that little bit of contextual conflict for
Right.
the overall, main arc
Yeah.
narrative.
If
thing going
anything,
on.
if anything, like, and I'm sure, you know, Gentle Criminal and Labrava are going to be used to incredible effect in addition to how they already have been used. But if anything, that more feels like it's just a, hey, here's a timer for how long this filler is going to last, right? I'll give you an entertaining little mini villain, you know, right? And they'll probably get explored in the way that, you know, we always do in MHA, right? But it's also something where, you know, okay, yeah, it's not just going to be the culture festival. There's going to be some aspect of dramatic finale where we can then go, all right, this is over now. Let's go into the next arc.
Yep. Specifically with regards to anime, I'm going to repeat what I said at the beginning because a lot of people are still just coming in here. When we're talking about filler, we are not talking about literal production filler
Right.
where it's there for that regard. We're talking about story with little, like very little main plot relevance / influence. An example of this would be it is hard to tell in the Steins Gate world lines deviation meter thing. If you removed this part from the story, how much would we change things as far as the actual plot would go? Would that become like a Dr. Pepper or an offshoot Dr. Pepper?
Yeah.
Like, is that the main thing that would change? Well, then it's probably a form of filler with regards to what we're talking about here. Because obviously we're not talking about why non-canon material is important.
Like I feel like in something like, say, Monster, right? The story embraces that so wholly that you don't miss a beat when it does it, right? And then you have things like, say, Vinland Saga, where, I mean, the episodes that were kind of the filler-ish episodes, like of the girl, you know, that ends up like telling them where they are and all that stuff, she ends up surviving. That, I'm sure there were a lot of people that watched Vinland Saga that maybe were a little bit upset by that episode, right? Because they're like, hold on, where's Thorfinn, right? Like, you know, he's like in that one scene, but he doesn't even say anything really. Like what's going on, you know? And and in that, it's something where, like, okay, it's not quite the audience wasn't necessarily as prepped for that, and yet it's still incredibly important.
Oh, very important. There's a couple shows like that specifically that have, I would say, individual little mini episodes of sorts where they might not genre shift entirely, but they change the focus at the very least to a different character. They shift the pacing of the story dramatically. It's usually a lot slower, so that they can kind of fill out on like maybe one or two characters specifically. And a lot of the ways that anime does this specifically is usually in the backstory. It's extremely plot relevant. Like, it's actually like really plot relevant, but the actual stuff that's being given to us within the overall immediate present conflict for whatever character is getting the focus on is really just a way to kind of ease in that we need to give a lot of exposition. Maybe we need to give a lot of world building, we need to give a lot of characterization. There are a lot of characters where you don't have a really easy way within the main narrative to catch them up to speed characterization wise to others. There's a lot of characters in Monster that have this where it's like, oh, suddenly they're the main character for like a few episodes.
Oh yeah.
it's an extremely important part of the actual like
Right.
show,
Uh-huh.
but the actual like conflict in there is actually less important than the characterization or exposition you're getting regarding said character.
Right. And especially if you've established a lot more strongly that you hold to, like, say, one character's perspective,
Right.
then you want to make sure that when you do those things,
Mhm.
it is, because it's already going to be kind of jarring, especially if it's in like a written medium, because
Yes.
you have a lot closer perspective to that character in a lot of ways, you know?
Sure.
But you want to make sure that you don't, again, overstay your welcome. So if you relegate it to, at this specific point, I'm going to do something like that, then there you go. You can get away with it a lot more easily. One of my favorite examples of filler in the positive sense
Yeah.
is going to be from Bleach.
Mm.
And I've mentioned this before.
Many
there,
times.
Like, there are so many examples of bad filler in Bleach, right? It's almost like a textbook, example, right? But in the case of Bleach,
Mhm.
one of my potentially favorite moments is the sacrifice that the main character makes at the end of the arc with Aizen and everything.
Right.
And that, in my mind, is really when the series should have ended, right? It didn't, and that's very unfortunate. But
Uh-huh.
if you go with the canon version of how things go, main character makes a sacrifice, then they immediately get that sacrifice basically revoked, right? What? Come on, what are you talking about? Like that completely undermines the whole thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the whole Gone ripoff, long hair and everything. But there's a filler arc in between the end of the Aizen arc and the Fullbring arc. Now, I don't like that filler arc as a whole, but I like one thing that they do with it.
Mhm.
They draw out the sacrifice that the main character makes, that Ichigo made, right?
Yep.
And it's the best part of the arc in my mind. But then there's an episode after that filler arc ends where they transition back into the canon arc, right? Which is the Fullbring arc.
Right.
And they just have it be like, it's practically a slice of life episode, because it's like, oh yeah, let's go ice skating and let's do all this stuff. But by doing that, and this is what I love about it, it's changing the genre kind of, but not without
Right.
intention. It's changing the genre because now our main character has to get used to normal life again,
Mhm.
right? And that's really hard, and he's kind of proud, so he doesn't like the fact that, he has to do this. And then there you go. And it's that adjustment, and it's this wonderful encapsulated episode where you understand exactly why it had to be there. It does a great focus on the characters. I think it's episode 342 if you want to check it out. But and it connects the two. Like, otherwise it's yeah. And Bleach had a ton of problems later on, so that shouldn't be surprising that there were those sorts of issues. But
I mean, it gave up.
Yeah.
It just did. I mean,
Yeah, it really did. But that's one of those examples where with filler you can do some pretty awesome things.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Nasubi. Episode 14 is top 5 episodes in Vinland Saga for sure.
Yep.
The episode was one that we
Amazing.
specifically mentioned in our notes here for the
Mhm.
podcast, in that episode 14 of Vinland Saga brings up one of the best conversations in the show, even though the show has probably like 10 incredible conversations that you would have trouble probably ranking at all.
Mhm.
And that's the conversation between the priests and the two brothers. And that conversation leads to some of the most fascinating aspects of Vinland Saga's themes being
Yep.
explored. Does it have huge plot relevance? Well, I mean, it kind of has a little bit.
As
because-
far as thematically and foreshadowing and stuff, it's
I'm
very
talking
important,
plot
but-
though, as actual plot stuff. There, it doesn't actually have that much, but the little bit that it does have is actually not tied in the conversation. It's entirely in the actual village bit there,
Yep.
where because the girl survives, she ends up escaping, going all the way to Thorkel, and Thorkel finds out that they're there
Mhm.
because of the way she handled things with her character, because
Right.
of how this whole scenario played out. The whole story of Vinland Saga wouldn't have happened the same way
Right.
if that part didn't happen.
Yep.
So one of the things that I feel like is easy to look back on in retrospect is when you remove a specific part of a story from the main overarching narrative, you'll be like, would anything change? And it's easier to tell when you're way far ahead down the line, because
Yeah.
oftentimes a writer isn't progressing everything as directly
Sure.
like even flow, linear type story.
It'd
It's
get
gonna-
kind of boring if they were, because
Well-
then it would be the same cadence all the way throughout.
Exactly. So at those slower points, at those filler points, if you will, potentially what's going on is that the writer or the creator or what have you is setting the stage for other things that are going to come later in the story. Now, again, a writer can then go and look at their previous
Mhm.
stuff that they've created and go, oh, I haven't touched anything upon this. I'm going to develop
Right,
that.
yeah.
Even though it wasn't authorially intended to be that way when it was written, that's not necessarily the point. What you can do within those moments of I would say filler or what have you is maybe reinforce some aspect of a character's characterization, personality,
Yeah.
what have you. You can set up a plot point that wasn't
Sure.
necessarily something you were intending, but then leads into it
Mhm.
when you explore it later.
And by the way, one of the best ways to make filler amazing
Mhm.
is to reference it, which kind of like because
Yeah.
I feel like the main reason that filler has a negative connotation, even when it's not
In anime.
yeah, but even when it's not literal filler,
Right.
you know, like it's actually something that the original creator put in there and all that,
Mhm.
is the idea that will this ever be important, right? You know, there's that question of, am I kind of wasting my time here? Is this just filling up the space so that way, you know, the ending can be at the ending point and not, you know, 100 pages earlier, right?
Yeah, Chibi Spheres, that's a great question. We literally brought this up before the podcast was coming up there. What are we going to do? Discussing things where the entire story fits a little bit of that episodic, non-plot conflict relevant type
Yep.
story. Well, you can still have filler in there because everything's based on, like, you know, it's all relative. So you could have something in there
Sure.
where it's less actually inclined to give development of the characters, where it
Yeah.
doesn't actually like do anything really interesting with the pacing or what have you, or it doesn't explore anything new about the story or switch anything up. I
Thank you.
would say that those moments there
Mhm.
are ones where they stand out actually, as you basically just grab the necessary stuff and start pulling it out of the story, see what remains as like, oh, that's you know, that stuff actually you don't really need it as much.
Thank you, Psychronia. This is actually something that we mentioned when we were talking
Mhm.
about the idea of this podcast.
Yeah.
Full Metal Panic Fimofu is just filler,
Yep.
right? Well,
Well,
yes,
kinda.
but is that a bad thing?
Right.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Like, because, yeah, Fimofu, it's the second season of Full Metal Panic. Like, Caleb, you haven't even seen the first or
No,
third
I've
season.
seen a few episodes.
Oh, okay,
I've
you've
a
seen
few
some of them.
episodes.
But,
Yeah.
but it's so filler that you don't have to watch anything else in the series.
Nope.
And yet it's amazing, right?
You also don't need to watch it necessarily
In order to watch,
in order to watch the
of
rest of the series.
Right, exactly.
They could both
Yeah.
be separate.
Why you would ever skip Fimofu, I have no idea. But
Right.
But the thing is that is a legitimate approach, because yeah, it doesn't really tie into things. There's like a one random moment where a character looks at a photo that was taken during Fimofu.
Mhm.
That's about it,
Yeah.
right? And yet, like, because I really feel like filler, if you are good with the slice of life stories, then you don't really have to worry about filler, you know, because you know, you understand that, yeah, there's bad filler, but there's you know, what filler can be is like, you know, your bread and butter. But if you are a lot more into like the action heavy shows and whatnot, then I feel like this can be a helpful reminder that there can be a whole other world of storytelling
Right.
out there
Yes.
that you have yet to enjoy.
Yep.
Because understandably so, you've probably had a lot of times that you've gotten burned with bad filler.
Yep.
Right. And there will always be bad execution on
Oh, yes.
on certain things, especially if it's being done because of production constraints and demands. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say that one of the things that brought up this discussion primarily was hearing that there were a lot of people that were really trashing on MHA for the festival arc,
Mhm.
when I wasn't hearing that there was this much dislike or distaste when we had the Fortnite arc, as we have just decided to dub it.
Yeah.
And I would not get into a debate as to what arc of MHA is better. We clearly are enjoying the festival arc more than a lot of the Fortnite arc, for
Mhm.
instance. But one of the things that I would posit of both of them is that they are both, majority is filler. Like, The both
Sure.
of them are.
Yep.
Most of it is filler on both of them.
Right.
There are specific things, though, in each one thus far with the culture one, where you can't necessarily remove it. You can't necessarily remove it thus far. It's very important. Like, I don't know, like, what importance it will be in the, like, the later bits.
Right. Yeah.
But, like, you need to resolve the arc with Eri. That needs
Yep.
to
That-
have
like-
a point of context in the story.
Mhm.
Now, we don't know because we don't have hindsight on this yet, but will we be able to at some point look back on it and go, actually, did we need to have the Culture Festival arc as the backdrop for Eri's heart being saved in the same way that that's kind of the theme of MHAs? You don't just save people's...
you save their hearts.
Save
Yeah.
people's lives, you save people's hearts.
Maybe, but I would say...
But we'll find out, right?
Well, and even if, say, the Culture Festival was, like, it could have been done without it, why would you want to? like, it's... I
Yeah.
love it. Like, okay, this is one of the other reasons why I love the Culture Festival arc in particular. And I think I kind of mentioned this, but... So, and I think I brought up the Kill la Kill OVA, right?
Okay.
Kill la Kill OVA was essentially just another episode of Kill la Kill, right?
Mhm.
But it, was like one of the not as good episodes of Kill la Kill. And the reason why I think it was especially not as good was because it stuck to the formula that Kill la Kill had early
Right.
on, right? With crazy school antics and shenanigans, and there's some competition or whatever that you have to do, and it involves
Yeah.
fighting and action and whatnot, blah, 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 right? And a lot of those episodes of Kill la Kill are kind of filler-y, right? But
Right.
because of Satsuki and the characters and all that, and Mako, bless her soul,
Mhm.
it all works. What I personally, and granted this is personal taste, so take it with a grain of salt, but what I would have wanted from that OVA is for it to go into something completely different than what Kill la Kill normally does. Do something that's slice of life. Do something that's some sort of noir mystery. Do whatever, right? Because then because anyways that the actual school stuff that we've already seen plenty of times before doesn't really matter, because it
Mhm.
doesn't involve Satsuki and her whole ploy and all that stuff.
Right.
So
One of the things that we didn't really bring up filler-wise with this is that there's definitely the adjacent filler, story adjacent, where it's got
Mhm.
some relevant stuff in there. And I would say it's kind of the average middle ground, like, it's not bad, it's not great, it's
Yeah.
just decent filler, is kind of that kind of stuff. But there is the other
Uh-huh.
type that is the stuff where you are going to give that side adjacent look into an aspect of your main plot without it actually
Mhm.
being something that is specifically necessary for the main story. What were you gonna say?
So one of the other reasons why I think in the Kill la Kill case it was so bad was because it was something where the it's after the end of the story, so it can't get referenced later because there's nothing that's going to come after it.
Okay.
However, I would like to bring up another example of filler that was at the end of a story and was one of the best filler bits I've ever seen.
Hit 'em
You
with
can
it.
probably think what it is, Caleb,
Yep.
but Darker Than Black, season
Oh.
1. I didn't see the season 2.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh.
Darker Than Black had a
I was not
great
expecting
ending,
that.
with the first season and everything.
With the first season.
With the first season. I haven't seen the second season.
You don't
but-
need to.
Yeah, that's what I heard. But but then they have and Darker Than Black did like 2-parters for all its episodes, right?
Right.
So that even though 22 episodes, it's like a 45-minute, right?
Right.
But and it's basically just this doujinshi doujinshi writer, or anyways, but this
or would
this
it be Fujiyoshi?
yeah, right. It's a Fujiyoshi basically who randomly saw the main character
Yep.
while they're doing one of their daring do's, right?
Uh-huh.
And was apparently quite taken with them and used them as inspiration for their steamy fan fiction, web
amazing.
novels or whatever.
It's amazing.
Because their collarbones were just so cut and
Oh
so
my
clearly
God.
defined.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's this entire little mini arc of how they see the person walking around in their regular garb, right?
Right.
They're not in their Chinese electric Batman
Yep.
getup.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And they see the collarbones. And they're like, that's the same. Wait,
I've
that
seen
is
the
the
collarbones,
super
yes.
dark, mysterious, handsome stranger that I saw that one night that was doing daring do's, right? I must follow them and figure out what the deal is. And it is this absolutely wonderful escapade that is completely irrelevant to the main story. It's after the end of everything, right? This is never going to get brought up again. And yet it is absolute gold, right? Because you get to see all of this stuff just unfold, and it's plausible that something like that would happen for Hay.
Yeah.
How would Hay deal with that? I don't know, but I can't wait to see, right? Like, and I don't know if Darker Than Black is like adapted from a manga or if it's anime original or anything like that. But even if it was like an adaptation and that wasn't in the original material, it's canon for me now. Like because why wouldn't you want that to be canon? And you know, it doesn't need to have anything tie into it later because one, it's at the end, but also because of the ridiculousness of it. So why not? And if you were to try and do something like that in, say, the middle of the series, that would so not work. Like, it would be so jarring to transition into that and transition out of that.
Right.
But yeah.
E Devil Shocker, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub for 17 months in a row.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. One of the things that we'll probably bring up, like, before we kind of get into kind of a discussion bit with you guys regarding this, is that with regards to filler, like, obviously we are not talking about, like, we're using our own definition of what's filler here. We're speaking about this specifically from the standpoint of what we're, like, focusing on discussion wise here. There are lots of stories that have long, like, overarching narratives, multiple arcs within it. We're going through the One Piece manga right now, for instance. We are in the middle of, right now, a ridiculous kind of filler sequence of an arc right now. Is it actually something worthwhile? Like, we don't know. Like, it's actually, like, really crazy right now. But the actual entertainment value from focusing on the exploration of having fun with those three things we mentioned in the beginning, changing up the pacing, developing the characters, and then exploring this within the context of the story you have thus far, and then just switching up maybe some aspect of the formula.
Yep.
If you're willing to have fun going through that and changing things up while still being respectful of the, you know, actual, like, main story and what have you, then it doesn't really matter whether or not it's canon. You see what I'm saying here? Because in that respect, what Jacob's talking about there, he doesn't care about in Darker Than Black whether or not that was what the mangaka or light novelist, or if it was anime original or what have you, actually like what that meant. He's just like, no,
this is great.
It's great for him. He enjoyed it, so therefore it's canon in his book.
And thank you, Cychronia. Scroll back up so I can read it exactly. I think I realized one of the reasons actual filler arcs annoy me so much, as well as why One Piece's G8 is great. The writers literally have a chance to put their fan fiction into the anime, and they squander it. Yeah, it's like, you can put your fan fiction into the anime. Go, be free. Like, this is your time. Like, you have been preparing this for, since you became a fan of the story, hopefully, if you're working on it.
Yes, Nozubi Benjamin, you're right in that conventional anime filler doesn't exist as much nowadays, but it is a thing in regards to, like, one-off episodes. We can take MHA as an example. They have had recap individual episodes at the beginning of every season, after season 1, of course. They have had individual episodes that they specifically, like, almost like break the fourth wall and tell you this is a filler episode, like the love episode
in MHA.
In MHA,
yeah, that was
ridiculous. They have episodes where it isn't actually explicitly stated as filler, but you can kind of tell it's filler, and yet it's not that bad. That's like the internship stuff, where you actually went and explored Suyu, like dealing with sea pirates or stuff like that. Well, not sea pirates, but redundant. But yes, villain pirates.
I think you were meaning seamen.
Seamen, yeah. But then the jokes all
right
would have come out of everywhere, right there. But now that we are kind of moving on to this, I want to hear from you guys. What are some of the things that you specifically like about story that has some plot relevance, like actually some relevance to the overarching main narrative and what you particularly like about it.
I'll go first in one that is definitely like people don't like it. Like, yeah, you mentioned Endless Eight, but one of mine is actually Someday in the Rain, the final episode of the first season of Haruhi.
Oh,
it's the episode where
Yep.
nothing happens.
No,
nothing happens. It's cold. It's raining, and Kyon goes to pick up a heater and carry it back, and Yuki sits in a room and reads in silence. Sometimes there's noise from the other side of the wall, and that's it. But then they do this thing at the end. You probably missed it. That does some awesome characterization for Yuki as a character, and also ties in amazingly to the Disappearance movie, since that is chronologically the last episode. But that's my show for Haruhi.
Yeah. I remember really not being happy with that episode because I hadn't seen the movie yet. And even then, I still don't think that it's worth it as an episode. Just
totally. I totally get why everyone hates that episode.
Yeah.
I just try and point out the thing that happened at the end.
Oh, Destrin, that's actually a great example. Or Dastrin, that's a great example. Your favorite things from Star Wars are probably considered filler, i.e. The Mandalorian and Clone Wars TV show.
Sure.
I would agree that actually some of the best Star Wars is in the Clone Wars TV show. The stuff that isn't actually really tied to the main overarching narrative of the Skywalker saga. The clone trooper squad that's dealing with it's literally a thing. Like, people have selectively removed the episodes that follow, I think it's Echo Squad or all I know is it starts with them at the outpost. And goes all the way through the show, and the people will like just watch those episodes of Clone Wars. Yeah. Because they like following those characters.
Oh yeah. Well, or like the Mortis or whatever it was, where they go to the place, and like that's about as filler as you can get.
That's about as fan fiction-y as you can get.
That too. But like, we go to a place, we leave the place, we forget everything that happened there, and we think it was all a dream, right?
Yeah.
You know, like so
what
it's
was the value of that? Well, you got to explore the characters in a unique way.
Yeah, and
was
maybe
it a Star Trek
building,
mini arc? Yes, it was.
It absolutely was. Yeah.
Vinland Saga episodes 5 and 6, which fills in the gap for the time skip. Yeah. There you go.
That's another thing that you can do with filler. We were talking about this, but Return of the Jedi, Jabba's palace. That's filler.
That's filler.
It doesn't have any context to the Empire. There's never stormtroopers there or anything like that. Like, why is it there?
Like,
they need to get Han back, but
there's not really any reference to it ever again in the Return of the Jedi.
And yet there are certain things that they do with it that are really cool. Yeah, there's the immediate thing of they get Han back, right?
Right, that's the main plot reason why they go there. So,
but they also do it to basically do a time skip and reintroduce the characters, right? Because you have Leia rescuing Han and being like, you know, someone who loves you and all that stuff. So the relationship's at that point now, right? They're open about that kind of thing, right? You have Luke coming back and being a full-fledged Jedi Knight, right? He's not the person just randomly swinging at the stuff Darth Vader telekinetically throws at him. He's coming in all brooding and force choking people and things like that. It's like, what? Okay, right? That's like that filler is actually something that's very commonly used in a very small form in like movies, especially, to introduce a character doing just sort of their daily life for a little bit before something comes along and disrupts it. Right.
Well, Ameju, with Tolkien lore, in fact, the movies kind of brought up this point by saying, like, sorry, guys, Tom Bombadil is filler. You all need to accept it and move on.
The Old Forest, we're skipping past that. We'll just sort of do a Fangorn little bit. You know, it's Treebeard and everything. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. All the time we spent in Hobbiton before Frodo actually left.
Dang.
Like, like, if you ever, okay, Lord of the Rings books are wonderful. There's a lot of things that Tolkien does, though, because he is a world builder. He's a linguist, you know. He is not a storyteller.
Yes.
So, there is so much filler, right, in Lord of the Rings. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
And yet that basically, even if it was just all of that, the only purpose it had was to basically tell Peter Jackson that, hey, film in New Zealand, like, hey, that served its purpose. Like you don't have to necessarily worry about the 3-page Elvish song that Galadriel sings. Like, literally 3 pages in a language you don't understand.
I mean, depending on the formatting of the book, but
Oh, yeah. But like, oh man, yeah, that's a good point. In the smaller books, it's probably a lot more than 3 pages. Like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, I can't not praise Kaguya-sama's ability to do episodic storytelling. Try to think back to every single segment in the anime. Can you think of a single one that doesn't add something to the characters or story? It's a lot of joke of the week stuff, but never felt pointless to me. I would say that Kaguya is using its genre to its utmost by being a slice of life romantic comedy to the utmost and not trying to actually shift much of the focus at all, and thus actually gets really good marks on execution, because the ambition of the story is literally just the dynamics between these 3 characters until we get the best girl, entering the story in the later half. But yeah.
Okay, hold on now. Oh man.
Spoiler alert, it's not Pink Chaos Ball.
Ouch. Why must you hurt me this way?
I have rewatched Kaguya-sama, and I've come to the realization of wisdom here. Lunar is saying, "Hey, reminds me of this one-off episode of Super Sonico, glorified advertisement anime where Sonico goes to a convention, and the entire episode is just a quiet atmospheric trip there. The environment quality skyrockets. There is little to no dialogue, and most of the sound work is background sound." Huh.
There you go. There you go.
Sure. Is it possible to have filler in a comedy? Probably impossible to distinguish. I would say an example of this would be if you entirely threw out the main cast.
Yeah.
You switched to a different character specifically, gave them all the focus, and didn't really tie things back to the main story anyway, and then also never had it brought back up in terms of, relevance in the plot.
Right. And
it has to have some, even though it might not be filler necessarily, if it doesn't have any plot relevance or influence, it's a very easy way to call it filler.
And if it's specifically, if there's some pattern that is established and then we deviate from that pattern for a little bit, do this thing and then deviate back, right? Is podcast 16.5 filler? Well, okay. The reason
doesn't has any relevance or influence on me, so
I mean, you've seen the movie
filler.
now though, so you could actually go back and watch it.
Movie of what?
Disappearance.
Oh, that's what that was.
Yeah, it was me just talking about the Disappearance movie.
Oh,
but
okay.
The reason why I did the 16.5 for that is because SAO, 16.5. I just had to make that joke. For those of you
that know what that means, yeah. Everyone knows best Kaguya Sasquatch.
Is it possible to have filler in a comedy? Friends, hold my. You guys remember that time episodes?
Wow. Oh, that's painful. That's so just like, ugh. That's when basically live action gets so lazy. Like, it's episode 200. Let's have a really lazy episode that references a lot of things.
You can
in
at
the
least
past.
appreciate
it's
the brashness.
It's a clip show.
You can at least appreciate the brashness of it.
Clip shows need to die in a fire.
How much filler would you say Yakuza 0 has? Well, okay. There's not actually that much filler, because the filler is just like when Kiryu has to deal with the whole bit with the Yakuza, and then when Majima has to deal with all the stuff that's actually serious. Like, I mean, because as we know, the side quests are the main story, so everything else is the filler. So not much.
Local Kaguya stan is notified of Cable rewatching the show and rushes to the stream. Well, it was back when I got the heads up that Kaguya was getting a second season. I was just like, yes.
Oh.
And it started with me rewatching the part where they're insulting each other in French, and it was beautiful.
That part is absolutely.
I'm sorry,
amazing.
It was Spanish. I'm sorry. I always get the languages wrong for some reason.
Oh, right. Yes, yeah. Is the command arc filler? It has nothing to do with Gone Looking for Jing, the main goal of the series. Well, if that's the case, is all of Pokemon filler? Because, Ash isn't, like,
No, Pokemon is so, like, hard set in its formula for the majority of the original kind of release. Well, that's actually another thing. Pokemon's had so many different series and stuff at this point. It's insane.
Yes.
One of actually my favorite things about the Chimera Ant arc, just bringing it up specifically, was the one part that I can like consistently look back on the Chimera Ant arc and go, yeah, they dragged that out a bit too much, is the part that I think we actually still kind of to this day kind of don't really find as enjoyable as much, and that is the stuff going on with Palm. But everything going on with Palm in that bit there is setting up basically our boys preparing for the Chimera Ant arc and setting up the characters of not only Knuckle and Shoot, but also Gon and Killua in kind of dealing with the fact that, yeah, Gon, are you okay? You okay, buddy?
Yeah.
Like, you good?
How's your mental health doing, my what?
What? Oh, I have that? You know? Huh.
Please, don't use made-up words, Killua.
So when the conflict of that aspect of the arc resolves, we're more satisfied that it's over rather than, excited that it had a resolution. So that's one where maybe the actual conflict style that they went for wasn't necessarily one for everyone comparatively to the rest of the arc stuff surrounding it.
Okay. Konosuba Season 2, Episode 1. It's a recap episode, and yet...
Sure.
And you could say it's kind of filler, but it does solve the problem that Cosmo was left on from the first season, but it's also incredibly well disguised, and...
That's true.
And it kind of fits the general bill of Konosuba as a show anyway, so...
I mean, just courtroom drama ridiculousness in general is so funny.
When it's not in D&D. Don't do it in D&D.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if you actually tried to bring your D&D characters, like, as the DM into a courtroom dynamic, that just sounds like hell. Because you literally have rules lawyers.
Yeah, you're inviting the rules lawyers, and they will beat you. They will beat you, and if you just nope them, that is very frustrating. Like, okay, actually,
no, please don't go into a rant.
I'm not going to go into a rant. I'm just going to do a little thing of how the first episode of Konosuba Season 2 is actually a great microcosm of why that doesn't work. They literally had a zone of truth in that episode the entire time. Because of the hilarious antics, you forget about it, but that entire episode could have stopped with Kazuma just saying what he says at the very end at the beginning.
Yep. It's true.
And that is why you don't do it in D&D, because you can always just get the local cleric to be like, hey, can you just come over here for a second?
And do Zone of Truth.
So I can give my testimony and that this isn't, like, that I'm not lying. Like,
right.
Yeah, but, you can't do that. Anyways, that's it.
What about shows caught up with the manga equaling bad anime finale?
Ooh.
So, Jacob and I are... one of those groups of people that actually advocate sometimes for anime original endings.
Yes.
Because, in my opinion, trying to add filler to kind of staple out the fact that you've caught up too much with the... in some ways, you almost want a Full Metal Alchemist situation rather than something else entirely. Like... Imagine if Full Metal Alchemist was a 250 episode show because of all the filler.
Well, I mean that's just what the original series would be if it got to the end eventually.
Well, that's my point. That's my point. If it was a 250 episode show, because they kept doing mini arcs, maybe it would have been better than the 2003. We don't know, but the idea is that the pacing would have suffered for it.
Right. Well,
like,
and
2003 Full Metal Alchemist is still a decent show.
Oh yeah. And the thing is that there are a lot of anime original endings that are great, or at the very least they're good. They're like, the fact that they exist is nice, and there are plenty of situations where you have an anime that doesn't have an ending because of the original material or whatever. I'm looking at Spice and Wolf, Haruhi, Black Lagoon, so many more I couldn't even count.
I think those are money decisions.
Though. No, yeah, totally. Well, to advertise for the original, but point is, if you, there are examples of anime original endings that are done badly, for sure. And if the original material actually ends, then that is the ending.
Right.
But if you're not going to get that, then take some creative liberties. Like, the people that are working on it, odds are probably better writers than the original creator, because they've been doing this for a very long time, right? it can be done. Just make sure that the production constraints don't cause it to be awful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See, in some ways, I don't want to bring this up, but that's what happened with Game of Thrones.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about this. Let's talk about
let's just bring it up rather quickly. Just the idea that because they wanted to stick with the ending that George R. R. Martin planned, or what have you, or they say they got from him, they had to hackney, like, adjust all the characters in order to make this ending happen, rather than just having their own show's ending. Which is funny because I'll bet you anything that, like, that's essentially how Game of Thrones is going to end. It's just going to actually make sense how it got there. In the books I'm talking about, it's just going to be something where the characters and their journey there will make actually a lot more sense.
Well,
because,
another way to do it, and this is okay. This is one of the reasons why I totally get how D&D got to the absolute shitstorm train wreck that was the end of Game of Thrones, but also one of the ways that they could have fixed it. So there was a lot of filler at the end of Game of Thrones, and it absolutely doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to start resolving things, start closing off things and whatnot, right? However, because of that, they were able to kind of do something that was a lot more basic, because you don't have a billion different plot threads that you have to all resolve in a satisfying way. But you know how that went, right? So, yeah, there were reasons that it was probably done, and maybe even, again, if they were taking more liberty with what happened and all that stuff, or just were better. I don't even want to get into that, but it could have been done, and it could have been done really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is. What are some other anime specifically that you feel like maybe could have used some filler?
Thank you for setting me up on this one, Caleb.
I thought that's where you were going with this.
Yeah. Domestic Girlfriend.
Oh my god, of course.
No, so seriously, the biggest issue with the anime.
Oh, the anime.
With the
gotcha.
anime.
Yeah, I agree, actually.
Is that it actually cut out all the filler, right?
Wow.
In just horrible ways, right? So that all the things that make us care about these characters and stuff, they gutted it. It was absolutely despicable, right?
I kind of agree, yeah.
Like, and it still got me into, like, interested enough to read the manga, but, like, that is a prime example of just how necessary that kind of stuff is. Domestic Girlfriend, Caleb's eyes glaze over.
Well, the thing is, I actually do kind of agree with Jacob here. There are probably two characters specifically that I wish got way more characterization. And as far as Jacob's kind of told me, those characters and others get more characterization in the manga.
Yep.
But I just don't care about the story anyway as much in order to actually want to read the manga. But, yeah, exactly. It's an example of why it's important and what it actually contributes. I would say that one of the best examples of filler in a story is actually Avatar: The Last Airbender. Avatar: The Last Airbender has some of the best filler stuff. This is me being super biased because I love the show so much. But actually, when you look at book 1, for instance, book 3, for instance, actually its worst parts of the show and some of the best parts of the show are actually its filler.
Yeah. Zuko alone.
No, Zuko alone is something that I would say is very much a necessary way, like I talked about earlier, to make backstory and exposition palatable.
And it also was important for Zuko having that bit of
consequence for being alone because he split up from Iroh.
Consequence for being alone, but then also contemplation over a situation, so that way all the stuff that happens afterwards in that season makes sense, right? But
Yep. Ember Island Players, they did the clip show recap thing rather well. I would say that the beach episode is actually a decent form of filler. I think that actually I don't actually really like as much the actual beach parts of it with regards to the beach volleyball and the I'm bored, I'm hungry, so what? So Find me some food. Sure. You know, like that kind of filler stuff. I don't find that as interesting as I find the actual campfire bit.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, because that was awesome.
Where it's literally the D&D party sitting around the campfire just taking turns talking about their feelings and their backstories.
Yeah. Yep.
Is it necessary to have... No, but I care so much more about the characters after having had it. This is maybe the positive way of thinking about filler. Is instead of having the thing of if you removed it would the story change, it's because it was added, did it edify or make you appreciate the story in a dramatically positive way? If that's the case, then the filler was definitely important. Because it's not necessarily going to be a empirically like, oh, is this plot relevant kind of thing there. And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
And let's take the worst episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Great Divide, right? I loved your
Avatar Day is also like right around that level as well.
Yes, but if you think about it, if you have an episodic show that deals in like learning specific lessons, right? Well, you can make them not filler by making the lessons relevant later on. Make the characters think on the fact of, yeah, that's right, we learned this before. Okay, yeah, what do we do in these situations? Here's what we do, right?
Right.
In a lot of ways, one of the best episodes of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is filler in a sense, or would be filler if not for the fact that it's then referenced afterwards, right? The Show Tucker episode in Brotherhood, right? It doesn't have the same relevance of it being like, you know, studying for an exam and all this stuff and whatnot that it was in the original series, which is interesting with the original series padding all anyways. But but it's something where that could have just been a one-off episode where that's it and you forget about it and whatever, and then it would have really felt like filler, and it, you know, it would have been like, oh, okay, why'd you have to have filler that dark, right? But then it's like, no. It has influence on the characters. There you go.
Yep. We didn't really talk too much about world stuff there, but I'm curious. What are some of the other anime out there that you wish had filler, like more filler? Haikyuu Yachi episodes are awesome filler.
Oh,
wait, you mean like the ones where they introduce Yachi? That's literally like one episode.
I think that is just one episode. Yeah.
Are there any other Yachi?
If there are, please give them to us.
Yeah. I'm like, give it to me. I want it. Yeah, Haikyuu is one where I'm just so obsessed with the show. I don't care what content they add to it. I will consume any and all of it. So, One Piece, the filler would have saved the pacing later on. Oh, okay, good to know.
I will say, this was filler, and it's not that it was needed, but I just really liked it. But the spin-off series for Haruhi, The Disappearance of Nagato Yuki-chan, tons of it is filler, but I really enjoyed it. But that might just be because I'm a huge fan.
Again, guys, we are not talking about the strictest definition of filler.
Right,
we are using quotations.
Right, because it's the idea
of why people call stuff filler that isn't filler.
Right.
We are saying that this is not filler.
Right. The idea that there's
call it filler for a reason, and then we're counteracting that with no, this stuff is important.
Right. And it's not just the using the term filler, because it's just a word, whatever.
It's just a word.
But it's like the stigma associated with that and saying that therefore that means this is bad. It's like, hold on now. Hold up a minute. Yeah.
Cycronia, if we get to request good filler, then I want a bunch of that for My Hero Academia. Give me characterization for all of Class 1A and 1B, and All Might and Aizawa, and the League of Villains, and...
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I love the school festival bit, because, there's the stuff with Eri, but even without that, right, because it's being done very well, yes, please, all of it.
Oh, in MHA, I thought the Pussycats and Summer Training Camp was going to be filler at first, quote-unquote filler, then they immediately turned that on its head. I agree as well. I thought the same as well. I think the gaps between a lot of the fights in Ippo could be considered filler, but imagine the show without it.
Yeah, exactly. No, that would be would not be the same. It would so not be the same.
Disappearance of Nagato Yuki-chan gave me PTSD to anime girls saying turkey. Okay, it's character focused with little to no plot progression. Yeah,
exactly. But that can be great.
Yeah.
And knowing, and again, it's the whole thing of not overstaying your welcome. Know when your audience is going to be okay with that because of the
Right.
amount of good faith you've built up with the characters, and then don't burn them out on it.
Right. One Piece usually has a little filler in between arcs that is just the crew interacting with the boat sails while the boat sails places. I could always get me more of that. Love every second of
Yep,
it.
same here.
Right. I would say the best stories are the ones where you actually could consume an unlimited amount of filler because the characters just interacting with
Yeah.
no plot is enough for you.
Right.
That means those characters are done really well.
Hence the slice of life genre.
Hence the slice of life genre. Yep. Because the characters are the story ultimately.
Some Toradora episodes felt like filler or side quest.
Sure.
Yeah, I could see that. And there was that one OVA that was definitely filler.
Oh, something got deleted by a moderator.
Play nice, chat.
Yeah,
Play
yeah.
nice.
Yeah. No spoilers. It breaks my heart when I see people on YouTube calling Gentle and La Brava filler villains based on these handful of episodes with them thus far. So, like, here's an example. This is literally why we wanted to do this podcast, is that
Yep.
people talking about this so much. And I just don't get it. Because with regards to what's being explored here, MHA is a very simple show. It's about saving people, or it's about what does it mean to be a hero, or what does it mean for you to be a hero? What does it take to be a hero?
Yep.
Well, one of the big things they repeat over and over again is saving the hearts of people. Now we have a very simple quest within this festival arc here.
Right.
We need to save the heart of Eri.
Right.
That is the biggest bit here.
Yep.
However, as mentioned by a couple of the characters thus far, a lot of the students kind of need this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a bit vague, so I granted, it could be more specific, but the idea that a lot of people need the levity and relaxation after the big, tense, murder fest that happened earlier, I buy that.
Well,
is it necessarily going to be your favorite arc? No. But actually having some story beats around it and then giving a lot of focus to the individual characters while they're in these moments there.
Yep. Like straight up, if not for Gentle Criminal and La Brava, which would be horrible to think about, but if not for them, I would consider this to still be the overhaul arc. Like, because his influence is not over yet.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You're right. There was something that Lunar said that I just wanted to bring up. Honestly, I'd really like more anime to do experimental filler, e.g. Endless 8. Whoa. A lot of people may speak ill of Endless 8, but I really appreciate the balls it took to do it, not to mention it did make for something incredibly memorable. Yes, it definitely did.
Wow.
And it's...
I can't say I 100% agree with you, but like, wow, I'm impressed.
I would love that too, just to sort of see what comes out of it.
The MHA community is strange because when the festival was going on in the manga, a lot of people hated it, but that might have to do with just the community because a lot of people don't see the bigger picture of these moments.
And that's probably one of the bits of magic of MHA is that it's able to reach so many different crowds. It's able to reach the people that want this kind of, filler contemplative moments and stuff, and then it also reaches the people that want to see really cool fights with big fists that go smash on the bad guy from the main character, and oh my gosh, they're so awesome.
For sure. The filler in Monster was really good.
The filler was better than a lot of the original plot
I agree.
stuff. Like the whole stuff with the baby, I was like, sure, this is good, but can we get back to like wholesome countryside episodes where we Tenma exploring and he meets some new family or person or whatever that's going through some struggle and they help him with his own internal struggles over what he's needing to do, and like, let's get more of that.
Yeah, in some ways, Monster is made by the way that it breathlessly executes on really beautiful pictures of humanity in these little nuggets of story.
Anna Hitman really filler was so good. Yeah. Like, that's just one of the examples. Like, if you haven't seen Monster, go check it out.
Go watch that.
Go check it out. Like
y'all, there's so many things story-wise that we'll talk about as like, this is some good story stuff. But like, Monster as a show, I don't know what the manga is, but I've heard it's in some ways might even be a little bit better than the anime, but like, that doesn't have the sound design of the anime,
which
really
would just seem so
yeah. Watch Monster for a way that you can do filler-esque stuff. It's just cream of the crop.
Yeah, I was going to say cream of the crop. Those words were literally on the tip of my tongue. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Yet the filler and Monster made the show for you, Rip
Mhm.
City. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And again, like, it's cheesy, but it's the analogy of a pie, right? You
Mhm.
know, like, if you had to eat a pie and it was just crust, that's
No
not a
filling.
pie anymore, right? Like the filling is the it's the flavor, it's the best part. Like the plot and everything, yeah, and the main storyline and
The
stuff,
structure and
that's
all
the
that, yeah.
structure. That makes it so that you can actually get the filling into your mouth in a way that isn't messy, right? But the filling is the real goodness. Yeah, pie. Yeah.
Pie! Yeah. I'd say filler is also valuable in the way it can cast spotlight on side characters and give them depth.
Yeah.
Jiro and MHA is a great example of this right now, but it's far from the only good example.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd say this was something we brought up earlier in the podcast, was that side characters in general, they're not worthy of being given the screen time in the main kind of main plot. So you need the filler time
Right.
to actually let people know, hey, this is lighthearted, this is fun.
Yep.
The consequences and stakes aren't as high. They are real though,
Mhm.
and they are relevant,
Right.
but they don't necessarily impact the overall narrative in a dramatic way. I would say that you bring up D&D earlier as the example of why this is so strong, is that because in D&D it's a collaborative storytelling element, a lot of people will make more intense non-metagaming actions in the spin-off content
Yes.
because they're less afraid
Uh-huh.
about the consequences,
Right.
and therefore end up role-playing better.
Yeah. So like
So
if you're worried about characters doing certain things because you're afraid of how it'll influence the canon of the story, then maybe filler is something you could do. Throw them into an environment where it won't completely wreck your narrative that's like has all these things you need to manage to fit together. Like again, Game of Thrones. But then you can do that, and it can be one of the most beautiful, wonderful things ever.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there's ways filler can be done not so well. We all
know
somewhat
those.
cringe a little bit just hearing the word filler.
Yep.
I'm sure that most of us hearing the word filler immediately want to add a little bit of commentary, like just from hearing the word. They're like, yes. It makes me want to like speak up and be like, hey, you know,
hold on now.
Hold on.
Yep.
So I hear you. Filler has it's a wound that we all kind of had as a point. That's like, yes, we've all suffered through that trauma at some point.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I didn't even watch Naruto, and I can feel your pain just by seeing filler equal Naruto. I'm like,
yeah, no,
I've heard the tales.
No, that was why I stopped watching Naruto because, yeah,
that's why you stopped watching it.
So and I just
did
went
watch
to
it.
I watched a bunch of it, and then I went to the manga,
and then you just had so much fun.
Well, yes, and then I eventually stopped the manga because even the manga wasn't getting anywhere. But Death Parade, someone mentioned Death Parade. Death Parade is another great example.
Sure.
The episodic nature of Death Parade, I would say, in some ways, is not necessarily the best in that it is dealing with different characters, and because the main character is a Kudere and the other character has amnesia, it's kind of hard to anchor it back to them, right?
Sure.
But one of the episodes within that I would definitely consider to be very filler-y is the comedy episode, right? With the boy band or whatever and the super fan, and they both died, and then they both got sent there, and the CHA, you know, like that episode, completely ridiculous,
so
completely
fun.
Doesn't follow the regular tone of the show, right?
No.
And yet so necessary.
Yeah.
One of my favorite episodes in the whole show.
Gwent, yeah, wax casual, exactly. That's the joke, is as everyone's finally catching up and playing The Witcher 3 because of the Witcher Netflix show, people are all like, oh yeah, the Witcher game is not actually that good because it's all a whole bunch of filler that you do to have to get to the interesting stuff. I'm like, yada does. I'm like, all right, we're gonna need some normies that need to get ora'd. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, one got killed by a dead girlfriend's vengeful sister. The other slipped on a bar of soap. Oh yeah, but again, like Yakuza, not doing karaoke or cabaret club manager or any of that stuff or the side quests and everything. Imagine if someone did a speed run of Yakuza.
Oh, they probably already have.
Oh, I'm sure they have. And for the sake of a speed run, okay, whatever, it's a speed run. But if that was how they did it and that was the way they, like, that was their only experience with it, that would be such an absolute travesty. That would be just, no, we don't speak of such things.
Speaking of video games, there's a current thing going on right now, chat, because I'm just going to keep mentioning it to chat so that Jacob is encouraged, eventually to play one of these games. But once he finishes either Tales of Berseria, Witcher 3, or
Nier Automata,
I'll read Komi, the Komi manga. So
now on stream, right?
I think it just depends on whether or not it fits within the slot.
Whoa,
right there.
hold on,
but I could do it on
hold on.
stream. I could do it on stream. Yeah. I mean, you'll have the manga available, so yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I just wanted to bring that up just in case.
I wanted to make
Jacob
sure
forgot
that
about
part
it.
was clarified. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't forgotten.
Okay.
I'm just letting it stew.
Just a reminder that he can finish both Berseria and Nier in the time it takes to finish Witcher.
Oh, probably in half the time it would take to finish Witcher. Like, you guys have seen the Yakuza streams. I would spend so much time on Gwent. Like, yeah.
So based on which one will be, this is where the fun begins, which...
Well, it would probably be Berseria because you've told me about the filler.
Oh right, Tales of Berseria's
those
filler
little
is
side conversations and
part
skits
about
and
it.
things like that. Like, yes, please, and thank you.
It's just an excuse to have a fun combat system in between skits that you get to see the characters be involved in.
Like, yes, please, why not?
We've deviated pretty far from the main point of this podcast as of this point, but I want to know kind of just some general thoughts of you guys regarding maybe like some things that you wish you'd see more of in filler. Like, what are some things that you wish filler would be used to explore a little bit more on a general sense? Please do. Nier is great, but I want my Berseria reaction. Last 2 Nier streams were crazy.
Ooh.
Yeah.
By the logic we are using here, wouldn't everything in The Last of Us except for the final chapter be filler? Yes, pretty much. And I would say that...
I don't even know anything about The Last of Us.
So I mean,
don't tell me anything. But
I haven't played the game, but I watched the compilation of the cutscenes. Best 4 a.m. staying up till that I'd ever done. Best late night I'd ever done. But anyways, yeah, because it's so character focused. Like the plot is so downplayed as being kept uber simple. Yeah, it would be in a lot of ways filler.
Okay.
And yet, that game would not that game would just be a zombie survival game without it, right? Like, that's all it would be. So, yeah.
Okay. Alternate world stuff, like what if scenarios. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Exploring the antagonists, like the campfire scene you were talking about.
Yes.
I want filler to do fan service more, not the lewd, judgmental parent kind. These characters are talking and doing this cool combo, confused parent kind.
Yes.
Okay. The Reagan arc in Mob Psycho 100 is my favorite part of the show. It's everything I want from filler. Oh, sure. More existential crisis on who's the enemy beach episodes, more kinslaying beach episodes, and more simple, character-driven slice of life.
Yeah.
Filler should be used to tell some darker stories, in my opinion. A lot of filler is comedy-focused. Oh.
I would say... in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the bloodbending one, that's a pretty good example.
Well, yeah, it's a pretty episodic story.
Right, it doesn't have much context on anything. Like, Katara uses it the one time in her character focus, episode way later, but,
It's actually more relevant in Korra than it is in Avatar.
Yeah.
Last of Us 2 is coming out in a little more than 2 months. Ooh, dang. More thematic bits and fillers so the identity of the show isn't tainted. Yeah, that's probably the reason why that's a thing that you want, is because of how much of it is comedy focused, that it ends up tainting the identity of the show a little bit.
Oh, fun fact. Filler episodes apparently get better ratings in anime than the canon ones because manga readers get to watch original content. Huh. That is interesting.
Oh, you never have guessed that.
The best kind of filler is the one where the cast gets isekai'd and get a new power system that they lose at the end of the arc and nothing is affected in the real world.
Wait,
I think this is very pointedly talking about a particular show.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like,
I'm reading it. I'm like, this sounds great. Wait, hold on. I think I've watched
that anime.
Yeah.
Monster and Avatar Last Airbender are the ones that come up with some good series filler outside of Gintama. Oh, Gintama, yeah. Eventually we'll watch that. Eventually,
Someday.
just like Legend of the Galactic Heroes, it'd have happened eventually.
Well, hey, but Legend of Galactic Heroes actually happens someday. So,
right, a dream episode. It's a dream, so no consequences. Oh, okay.
Sure. And that could be really fun too, because then you could get into like a lot of the fan fiction-y kind of territory where it's sort of like the latent subconscious desires of this character. And then it sort of is relevant in a sense that like they had that dream, so it's like, oh my, but no plot consequences.
Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles, where the cast just does just that. Isekai and new power system on an almost consistent basis, or almost constant basis for like the first half of the series.
Wow. Wait, Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles, isn't that... Or no, that's Lunar Legend Tsukihime. Never mind. I thought that was a Type Moon thing.
Oh, LMAO. Yeah, I was talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Not Hunter x Hunter Greed Island. Reminded me of Capsule Monsters.
Gotcha.
The
rated R filler for sure.
I wish filler would have more lasting development. Many stories for the marking moments their characters are guided by later on, the action scenes. But going back to Avatar, most of what moves Zuko didn't happen in the fights. It was all in the quiet conversations he had with Iroh.
Yep.
Reading that was a trip. It's a Clamp series. Oh, okay.
Would Araragi's date with Senjohara be considered filler? I would actually consider that the climax of like
Bake.
Of almost Bake, and I think that was for like because the
release schedule.
The release schedule, some of it was done online or whatever, but because that I feel like is the true finale of the Itagi Crab arc.
If I were the creator getting his work adapted, I'd probably decide to preemptively write filler stories and have it on standby at any time.
That sounds awesome, actually. that is a great point.
Yeah.
And if not for the fact that they were probably being worked so hard with just making the manga and everything, like if they actually had some time to breathe, I can imagine that they probably would.
Mm-hmm. Would every other faction's magnum opus but yours during a reaction count as filler or selfishness?
Wow.
Faction magnum opuses, one of the best part of the last 12 months of my life. Oh my god.
We need more filler of Best Girl Thorkel.
Yes, definitely. Technically, a large majority of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime is filler, seeing as even the Japanese version of the anime censors so much that it tends to deviate drastically from the manga.
Yeah, I heard at the beginning Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like a horror, like...
Yeah, it's much scarier and darker.
Yeah, and it was like all about like torturing people and whatnot, like the enemies and whatnot.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, we're gonna be calling it here. Thank you all so much for joining us for the podcast here, discussing filler and why it's actually useful to have. In a lot of cases,
oftentimes done badly.
Yeah. So y'all be sure to be here for our other streams. We are not streaming on Wednesday. I'll check that out and see what's going on there. Sometimes, well, actually in the past I was streaming on Wednesday for the Star Wars game, but because of scheduling stuff, it's actually been tricky to get those streams in. But on Tuesday, tomorrow, we're doing our One Piece manga read through.
Yes.
We just had a boxing match.
An Afrotastic
boxing match. So that was a thing. On Thursdays, Jacob's doing Yakuza 0 streams. On Friday, I'm doing Nier Automata streams. And then on Monday, again, back for the podcast. All of these at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So be sure to be there. And Jacob, you got a book or something. Right?
That's right. Yeah, so boom. I wrote a sci-fi novel called Battle Lines.
You need some BL in your life.
If you need some BL in your life, go check it out. It's on Amazon. If you're outside the US, it's only an ebook, but it's really great. Definitely go check it out.
All right. So, we'll see you in the next stream, hopefully tomorrow. Leave a follow in case you want to stay up to date on all this stuff. And if you want to have Bezos-kun help us, clear out a lot of his fortune. I hear he has a lot of money and doesn't know what to do with it all. Here's Twitch Prime's a thing, so you can hit that,
exactly.
And you'll get free access to our private Discord where you can chat with us in the community there about all kinds of stuff. So check that out. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob,
and we'll see you all next time. All right. Filler lines.
Are you going to write filler arcs for Battle Lines? Well, actually, in Battle Lines, it's very very fast paced, and there are definitely the contemplative moments of a sort, because I'm all about that. But
there
really
technically
isn't
a beach episode.
Okay, there is a beach episode, but it
in
has
Battle Lines.
But I specifically made it so it has very important canonical complications and consequences. And,
yes,
and so it actually is important.
I particularly liked how it really sets up the fan fiction battle curves.
Oh yeah,
I mean, the fan service in that
the
part
fan fiction writes itself.
It writes itself.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, for sure.
Specifically for a few of the characters.
Yeah, although I think the most fan fiction-y self-writing part in the book is not actually between the angels. It's between one of the angels and then another.